Today, we're going to talk about the 3 stages of retirement. And the thing I'm going to do today also is when you meet with our team, we do what we call our retirement readiness assessment. What I'm going to do a version of it on the call today. So you can walk away with your retirement readiness score. But the slight twist on it today will be you won't necessarily get the score that we would normally give you, but you'll know what stage you're in when it comes to retirement planning. And so when you know what stage you're in and you know what plan you need to follow while you're in that stage, it makes retirement pretty easy, right? And that's our job at Fed Legacy. We like to, we study and we've been doing this for a long time so we can help you understand where you are along your retirement journey because things change over the years, right? Tax laws change, the markets change and things like that. Of course, we're not making no reactive things on that. Healthcare cost changes. Like this year, healthcare costs soared up for folks. And so we had to make adjustments to folks' plans. And so as things change, that's just a few of the many things. But what you want to make sure is that you know what stage you're in and so that you can plan accordingly. So we'll do that today. So you'll walk away today with knowing where you are in your stage. So I'll take time to go through the assessment. You grade yourself. So what stage you in? Super, super important process. Part of it, because a lot of times folks just don't know. I tell a story all the time how my parents put me and my brother through private school when I was in, and they try very hard. Like they put us through private school in elementary school, they put us through private school, high school. Then I'm being the firstborn, they tried to put me through college, but as they were doing that, it just broke them to the point where they went through a foreclosure right after I was going through college, just because they were just trying to do the best they could for us. And they didn't really know what stage they were in. Nobody taught them anything about finances, right? And because they didn't teach them, nobody taught them, they couldn't teach me. And so I had to go out and learn on my own, get mentors and put a lot of schooling in to get the knowledge that I have. But it wasn't given to me, right? And so my whole thing when I watched my parents struggle was I want to help as many federal employees that look like me, right? And the reason why federal employees, because I'm from the DC area, Prince George's County, Fort Washington, Maryland, born and raised. And, around me was nothing but federal employees trying to do their best. But oftentimes what we noticed is a lot of those federal employees were living check to check, not quite sure how to expand and grow wealth. And that's why I started Fed Legacy 18 years now since April. Since April just passed. And so this is why I started Fed Legacy, because I didn't want more people that look just like me, myself, my parents, and just struggling because we just didn't have the answers, right? And so federal benefits, y'all have your own language. And I always say this when I'm talking to federal employees, because people watch the news, they come to me with CNBC stuff or stuff they read on the internet, and they're like, well, Mr. Smith, should I be doing this and that? And I always say federal employee benefits are very different than a person who has a 401k and they're living off Social Security with that. Or somebody that has a very little 401k or none at all, and all they have is Social Security benefits. A lot of what you see in the mainstream media is driven towards those folks. Because you have a pension and you have Social Security and you have your TSP, which is giving you the 5% match and all those type of things that has decent funds, your retirement looks very different. And so oftentimes when we're sitting with people, your pension plus your Social Security can take care of a lot of your expenses. And so then what ends up happening is as your TSP continues to grow down the line, that creates tax issues. Like today, I was talking to one of my advisors and a lady, her mom just passed, and now she just inherited a bunch of IRA money to her mom, and it's now sitting in Ameriprise, and she doesn't know what to do because now she has to pay that 10-year rule. And herself, she's in her 60s. And so she's dealing with her RMDs coming up, but now she has to deal with the 10-year rule with the money that her mom left. And so that's a problem that when it comes to the 10-year rule of her TSP, well, the 10-year rule is everybody's issue now. But the fact that she has so much money in her TSP, plus she just got this inherited money, and she doesn't need her TSP for income, so she's not drawing down on it. Now she's going to have all this money that's going to have to do in taxes because she has to convert all this money. So it's a problem that oftentimes is very unique to federal employees. And so that's one thing that we focus on. We make sure we understand your benefits because there's not a lot of folks out there that do it, And so when it comes to federal employees, oftentimes there's 3 belief systems that I witness that most federal employees have is, the more information, right? The more information lie, there's an inner voice lie and a system lie, right? Those are 3 things that oftentimes people show up to us and they're thinking about. The more information lie, what is that? The lie is the more information you get will get you there, right? The more information will get me there, right? And what that means is the more webinars I attend, the more things I read, I'll be okay. But that's not necessarily the case, because all that information without a stage of knowing where you are and what you're going to do with it is just noise. Hey, chill out. I have two dogs here with me. The more information you get doesn't necessarily mean you know what to do with it, right? Because again, things change all the time, right? And so, I was talking to a client and she was saying she's so upset because she's never heard anything about the 10-year rule, which was a big deal, right? Because when she inherited her mom's money, this was not the lady from the other day, but this is a lady before we created this deck. She had no idea, right? And it cost her $30,000 in taxes just because she didn't know, right? Because she didn't understand the stage that she was in when it came to when she would pay taxes, right? And so the inner voice, this is the other one, inner voice lie. People come to us and they're like, oh, I would have came to you a long time ago, but I just felt like it was just too late and there was nothing I could do, so I just stayed quiet. And so oftentimes people come to us and they thinking it's too late. But no matter where you are, finding out the fix will be cheaper than finding out the fix a year later or 2 years later. It doesn't matter where you are in the process, right? Especially as federal government employees, because you have a pension, oftentimes the problems that you think you have, you can fix, right? And so, again, I was talking to a client the other day. I'm always talking to clients, but this particular situation, I was talking to a married couple and they thought they had a 7K monthly income gap when the reality was they didn't. But they just felt all down. They didn't understand how the FERS pension and Social Security worked. They didn't understand how to draw income off their TSP. So they thought they had a 7-month income gap. So they didn't want to talk. They thought they had to work longer. But we were easily able to fix that through a strategy, right? And so you want to make sure, and then that you have an understanding. And so the third one that we always get is people that come to us and they're just feeling helpless because they're like, well, the system already handled it. My TSP, my pension, is nothing really I can do. HR is, they have it all under control. No, the system is built to pay you, which it will do, but it wasn't built to plan for you, right? It wasn't built to plan for you. So when it comes to income and things like that, those things are really nuanced and it's really based on you personally. I have people all the time that come and they're like, well, my friend did this, so I want to do that. And oftentimes I'm like, well, does your friend have kids? Does your friend realize how much debt you have? Do y'all have the same amount of debt? Is your friend married? Is your friend married to a federal employee or a military person, to my retired military? Is your friend's spouse have a business? Does your friend's spouse make more or less? Like all those different things matter. Does your friend have a child with special needs? Does your friend have as many children? It's all these different variables when it comes to how you have a plan. And so you want to make sure that when you're thinking about your retirement, that you're not just going to HR and you're getting basic numbers and thinking the system's going to take care of you. You want to make sure that, yes, get your numbers, but then create a plan that will give you the peace of mind so you can have an amazing retirement. I was talking to a client the other day, and we were texting on one. She asked me a question, and you could, if you're a client of mine, you could just text me. And so we were watching the NBA Finals game, and she was texting me. And it was like game 3 or something like that. No, it was game 2. It was when the game was in San Antonio. And she was just talking about her nieces and things like that, how they're spending all this money. And she's like, what do I do to protect my money from going to them? And then, we had a quick dialogue about that. But then it was like, well, what are you going to do? And my whole thing with her was like, you saved over $800,000 in your TSP. What is your plan? You have to spend this. You're in your late 60s. What are you going to do? And so she was like, you're right. I was like, well, let's start talking about it. What's your dream car? We started going into the details. And then she texted me during game 4 and she bought tickets to the Knicks playoff game. It had great seats. And she sent me a selfie at the game. And I was like, that's what I'm talking about. And I was like, how did that feel? And she was like, it was great. She did it. And I was just like so happy for her. All because I'm like, all right, you saved this money. You followed through with all the plan stuff. Your money's growing. Now you need to enjoy it. And so why having a plan is so important is because it allows you to be able to do the things you enjoy without feeling guilty about it. And so that's the whole thing. You worked your entire life to get to this point of retirement. You want to enjoy it. And I get it, right? Sometimes it's things I'm not confident about, so I hold back a bit. But once I get the truth, understand the numbers, I understand the plan, it allows me to relax and I could be myself and I could go and do what I want to do. And so it's the same thing with your retirement. And so in an effort to support you in that, we've created our retirement finish line process. And so we use the acronym FINISH to because it means things, right? And so for us, it means optimizing your federal benefits. That's the F. The I is investing your TSP properly. You want to make sure you're investing your TSP in the proper manner, whether it's having how much you have in traditional or it's how much you have in the Roth, right? How much what funds do you have it in? Do you even need to keep all of it in TSP? Where can you move it? Super important. The N in Finish stands for navigating tax efficient strategies. We talk about this over and over again. A good tax plan for someone with a decent amount of money in their TSP easily saves you three, four, $500,000 easily done right. Well, save you and your family of money that's going to go to the IRS, especially with this 10-year rule that Trump passed in 2021 with the Secure Act. The next thing is insurance and asset protection. How much insurance do you have, right? And we're not big whole life people thinking you need to have these big whole life policies. We're not that. We believe you need to put your money towards your TSP, but you should have some level of insurance, especially when it comes to like survivor benefits, or if you have kids that are still young-ish in their 20s as you retire, you want to have something that in case something happens to you, they get that as well as the TSP because it's such a long ride. Also, a lot of insurance now have living benefits on them. So if you don't have long-term care, which you as a federal employee, oftentimes you don't need, but again, it's case by case, but most federal employees don't necessarily need that. But having a life insurance policy as your TSP grows, right, that has living benefits on it can be very beneficial because it could pay for a lot of your long-term care needs or emergency medical needs. And then the second S is for smart income strategies, which we've been talking about over these last couple of weeks, is when you take your income, why you take your income, where does it come from? Those things matter. And then H is for healthcare and medical planning, making sure something happens to you from a long-term care perspective. We really plan that out. Now, the insurance protects that for sure, like in the I, but if something happens, we want to make sure we have a detailed plan for that. And I left off in the A because this is something that's new to Fed Legacy. We started about a month ago. We've been meeting with folks one-on-one about it, but we just began offering Fed Trust and Wills. It's an estate planning trust. We do trust Fed. We do estates and trust, right? Because we want to make sure that not only do you build your wealth, but you protect it. And it's something that we've been for the last 18. We've been referring that out to different firms, and it's just been a horrible experience in my opinion because I feel like the estate planning business is just most estate planning firms that are out there. The attorneys are older now, and they're just slow. And so what we've done is we've partnered with some attorneys that we've vetted and went through a process, and now we control the whole process from start to finish. And so if you want to meet with us, just put trust in the chat, and we'll make sure we'll get you on a call with our estate planning team. So I couldn't leave without saying that. And so again, order when it comes to retirement matters. This is just a simple example. Do you take money from your traditional TSP for income, or do you take it from outside taxable accounts? That's a big difference when it comes to taxes because you pay the capital gains on the taxable accounts. Traditional TSP, you don't necessarily have to pay that. You pay the income tax. Very different tax, makes a big deal. The next piece that a lot of people miss is the FEGLI and the increasing cost of FEGLI, when and why you stop that. Super important when it comes to planning because that option B, 5 times your salary, keeps going up. And what we always talk about is making sure you stop that FEGLI from increasing so that you can put that money towards your TSP because that money will grow a lot fast. Well, that money is more useful to you going towards your long-term plan than keeping a 5 times your salary where you can reduce that cost with a fixed life insurance policy and put that remaining money into the TSP so you're avoiding these price increases over time. Then the next one is the Roth conversions. Just making sure you're converting the TSP, the traditional TSP, at the right timing and the right amount, right? Because sometimes you can convert into a mistake, right? And that means you increase your IRMA cost because you took too much, right? The big one for some folks. Or you're converting way too little and you're drawing it out over time and it's not really making a dent and you just don't even know about it. Like, so for example, I had a client, she was telling us she has over $1 million, but she was just saying she wanted to convert 20,000, and we ran the numbers. Her interest on the money that she makes is more than the 20,000. So it would have been just basically her just running in place. And so you want to make sure you have a strategy around how much you convert. And so here's the assessment, right? We got, I want to take some time with this. When we do our actual assessment, it looks different than this, but I wanted to give you all something so that you can see where you are as far as stages go. So let me tell you how this works. So I want you to rate yourself 1 through 5. 5 meaning high or and confident in it, 1 meaning not so much, right? And how sure company you are, right? So let's start with income. When it comes to income, do you know your monthly income gap if you have one? 5, you're confident, you know what your income's going to be, you don't have a gap. 1, you're unsure, right? So rate yourself anywhere between and keep tally of what you have, right? 5, you're confident. 1, you're just not quite sure if and when you'll have an income gap or how. So rate yourself there. I'll give you a little bit of time there. And then 2, let's talk about taxes. Taxes, 5, meaning you're fully aware of when you'll pay taxes, how much you'll pay, and what strategy will you use to avoid it. 1, you're not quite sure, right? Taxes are just something you just are not sure about. And if you're kind of sure, you can go 3, 4, but rate yourself 5, meaning you're confident, 1, meaning you're just not sure. And we use this when we're meeting with folks to see what areas we need to focus in on. And then 3 is risk. 5 is, does your TSP allocations have a job? Meaning, you know why you have 50% in the C and 50% in the S, or you just have a number there. You just have your funds invested, but you're not quite sure. So 5, meaning you're confident, you know exactly why your TSP is invested the way it is. 1, you just have it some way, but you're not quite sure if it could be better. You just don't know. It's just there, right? Because that lets us know how confident you are in your risk mitigation strategy. Because right now, the market has been going great for everybody. So people are like, oh my God, I'm making so much. But these things reset. And it's okay for it to reset if you're in your 40s, but if you're in your 60s and your 70s and things come up, it's not great feeling when the market resets and you don't have as much time to wait out, or you're using the money. It's just not a great feeling. 4 is all about TSP. 4, have you priced your FEGLI out, right? 5 meaning you did. For this one, we could do 5 meaning you're confident in your life insurance situation. 1, you're not quite confident in your life insurance. Let's just leave it at that. 5, you're confident in your life insurance situation. 1, you're not quite sure, but you don't feel protected, right? And 5 could also mean I don't need life insurance, right? So let that be 5 too. And then the 5th one is legacy. Legacy meaning you have your estate plan in order, your beneficiaries. If something happened to you today, your beneficiaries are correct and your family knows exactly how to file the documents and they're clear. 1, you're not confident about that. You don't have your estate plan set up. Your beneficiaries, you're not quite sure what your beneficiaries are each form, and your beneficiaries won't know what to do if something would have happened to you. These are the things you just have to think about because you just never know. And then 6, how confident in you in executing all of this for yourself. 5 meaning you pretty much got all of this. 1, you're just winging it. For being honest. All right. So here's what I want you to do. There's 3 stages based on these answers. And I want you to put your stage in the chat, right? No judgment. If your answers were mostly 1s and 2s, put yourself as starting line. Just put that as where you are, starting line. You can just put SL. You ain't got to type the whole thing. If your answers were mostly mixed, like you had some 3s, some 4s, some 5s, right? Then put I'm gaining momentum. And then if your answers were mostly 4 or 5s, just put finish line. Like you there, like I'm good. So just rate yourself. Mostly 1s and 2s, starting line, mixed, bunch of big stuff, some 4s, some 5s, some 1s. Put I'm gaining momentum. And if you're mostly all 4s and 5s, put finish line in the chat. And so the key is, no matter where you are, you can get to the quote unquote finish line, right? It's about just getting on the path, staying on time, so you can be with your people, right? That's just the bottom line. And so what I want to do now, because I know we probably have if we have questions in the chat, I want to make sure we get to them, because I didn't get to them a couple weeks ago. And so if you want to set up a session with us, you can just go to fedlegacy.com. We'll make sure we set up a session with you, or we'll take you through our actual risk assessment where we go in a little bit more detail. And then what we'll also do is build out your retirement analyzer so you can really see what stages you were on, and really we help you move down that path.